We are a manufacturer of highly emotional luxury products. If one single person comes in, he looks at, say, the motorbike or the car and goes, I don't really know, it's over, that's it.
Strap on your seatbelts and hold on. I think I'm going to wake up the whole neighborhood.
I see an AP Perpetual Moser Vantablack ceramic double balance.
Let's say I'm giving a talk in front of college students. Why am I wearing a yellow gold Audemars Piguet? Do I really need to show off in front of that crowd? Watch collecting in the end is a hobby. It's luxury products. It doesn't change the world. Who am I trying to impress?
We are here in the heart of Germany at BRABUS headquarters, where precision meets passion. I'm here to interview the man behind it all, BRABUS CEO Constantin Buschmann. We're going to talk watches, we're going to talk cars, so let's get into it.
Good morning. Or
Hey, Roman.
Guten Morgen, I should say.
What's
How are
up?
you? Nice
How
to
are
meet you finally.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming in.
So, first of all, I appreciate you having me. I obviously wanted to have a look around. I wanted to talk to you about your journey, about the company, as well as your watches. Speaking
Absolutely.
of which, what are you
Thank you
wearing?
guys for coming over. Today I'm wearing an 𝗿𝗏𝗯 Sport chronograph, or Porsche design Sport chronograph 1 from 1978. It's the first watch that my father ever bought. The number one watch in my collection.
It is also a priceless watch. People always talk about values of watches, and what I always say, sentimental value is priceless. But we're going to get into your watches and your journey into watches later. First, I want to see the companies.
We're going to have to talk about cars and watches today.
Let's go.
BRABUS, the alchemist of the automotive world, transforming ordinary vehicles into luxurious chariots. This is not just a story of cars, but of visionaries where every vehicle is a testament to the union of raw power and refined elegance. Welcome to the world of BRABUS, where legends are crafted and the road is redefined.
In your own words, what does BRABUS actually mean to you?
We are a manufacturer of highly emotional luxury products. In our case, of course, very technical luxury products. For almost 45 years, that used to be cars. Mainly, we've worked on Mercedes-Benz, now also Porsche, Rolls-Royce, and maybe a few new things that might come out later this year. We design our own range of boats, motorbikes, and even a few watches. So it's a brand that keeps growing.
I know, I have one.
I get up every morning and I live for designing stuff. My big passion in life is designing products with my team that in the end have what we call the BRABUS 1 second wow effect. Meaning we want to build products that you see, instantly recognize, and fall in love with them within 1 second.
That's my first reaction. You know, I see a product and the first word out of my mouth is wow. So I think you've achieved that, at least with me, I can tell you that
Sometimes
much.
we don't. There's a lot of product reviews or board meetings where we come into a room, and if one single person comes in, he looks at, say, the motorbike or the car and goes, I don't really know, it's over, that's it.
The 1 second wow. I can relate to that. The same feeling I get when I look at his cars is the same feeling I get when I open a box and look at a watch. The design, the dial, the complications, the finishing. If I don't have an immediate reaction of, oh my God, or wow, then why even bother?
When I took over this company, it happened because my father very suddenly passed away. It was completely tragic. It basically threw the whole company and family behind it into a crisis, and we had to manage. I didn't have any idea whether the company would exist in 2019. I think I'm most proud of is being able to go on that journey with the same team that worked with my dad in the last generation for almost 4 decades, while still adding a lot of young and fresh and new talent to it. Together with the old and the new, we've been able to transform the company and somehow make it our own in the next generation and develop it based on the legacy, but develop it into a new direction.
What were some of the mistakes that you wish you could go back in time and actually correct?
Everybody makes mistakes. Since 6 years, I'm running around this company and I'm saying, guys, if we don't make enough mistakes, we don't try enough. However, you have to take that with a grain of salt, because if brakes fail, we don't want that mistake to happen. If a motor doesn't work, if we deliver it to the other end of the world, not a funny mistake. When you think about new products, when you develop the company, when you start to do new things, if you don't make mistakes, you simply don't try enough. So fun fact about this part of our factory that we're in right now, it's actually inspired by watch manufacturing. I've visited a lot of watch manufacturers because I'm just a big watch nerd, and I noticed how their manufacturing has to be super clean, because if let's say you lose a screw that's a few micrometers, you have to find it again. When we revamped our buildings a few years ago, I said, why don't we build a car shop that looks exactly like this?
I'll tell you like this. I've been to some car shops, they do not look like this. And now that you said that, and I've been to a ton of watch manufacturing, I can see the value in that as well. Number one is organization. Number two, cleanliness. Number three, you don't lose anything for one. And at the end of the day, not many manufacturers will take a retail client into their workshop. And this is the type of workshop where you can walk through with a retail client and they go, oh, wow.
For us, the workshop is the showroom. I want you to come here. I want you to see it. If we are not completely crazy about the product, if we're not totally nuts when it comes to the effort that we're making to produce these things, who is?
Passion is the only thing that will drive motivation. The attention to detail that BRABUS possesses is insane. Take a look at their own leather designing section. It is exactly why BRABUS are the leaders in creating the most unique cars in the world.
They also have an entire digital system dedicated to designing a client's custom car. I feel like this is the Apple of car manufacturers. And then we popped over to the showroom that showcased their vintage vehicles.
You take a car and restore it back to originality, or you put your own twist on it?
Either a customer comes with their own car, they want to have it restored, and the other option is that we find a car, take it in, and then we restore it. Interior color, exterior color, just as the way it rolled out of the factory. Of course, if a customer comes and wants to have his car rebuilt and says, I want to have it blue, of course, he can get it in blue.
There's no rocket version of this?
No.
No. But we keep the color choices to the original colors. So you can get a red, which the car came in, or a blue or something, but you can't have a neon green or something on your car. That we don't do.
If you guys were to go out and source one of these for me and restore it to its original face, approximately what is the cost?
If we rebuild the car ourselves from scratch, every single one costs the same, no matter of the configuration. Every one of those is 330. This one is 700. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
This is a Roman car. Looks like Roman. So originally this car was brown also?
Yeah.
I didn't even dare to ask to drive the vintage cars. I wouldn't take that responsibility, but I did drive some cars.
We're about to go run over some smaller cars. The one thing that's missing in this car, because we're from America and we're cowboys, is 2 machine guns on top, and that's it.
Not the car for in the city now.
No.
With 6 meter plus.
No.
This is a problem for parking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's also taller too.
Exactly, the height is in the park house a problem.
I would like to welcome you to flight 104 from Düsseldorf to the moon. We're going to be traveling at speeds of 400,000 miles an hour at approximate altitude of 32,000 square feet. Strap on your seatbelts and hold on. Wow. Oh, wow. This thing has balls. In America, we call it balls.
Yeah,
big
exactly,
balls.
yeah.
I think I'm going to wake up the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
So now that we took a nice 10-minute stroll, we started talking about the Porsche Rocket and the purist and the guy that I spoke with over the phone. In fact, when I was here, I FaceTimed him and I showed him this. And this guy, when I say he's a purist in every form,
What do you say?
he said, wow, which achieves your goal as the 1 second wow factor. But I actually asked him, I said, I need you to be honest with me, because he's giving me an unbiased opinion. As a Porsche purist, would this be a car you would consider? And he answered yes.
I would never say we make cars better, because
Right.
Porsche builds one of the best cars in the world, one of the best packages in the world, and so does Mercedes for a lot of their cars. When we look at a new car to work on, we take things very slowly, and we think first and foremost about what is the right base. In this case, it's the 992 Turbo S. It is not a GT3 Touring, it is not a GT3 RS, it is a 911 Turbo S. Because we are not a racing company. We are a company that is in the end about very fast, very individualized, very good looking, very very luxury cars that are still comfortable, that are still street legal, that you can take anywhere, that still function in daily life. Yes, they're collectibles, but we still want you to get in, turn the key and drive. They're not race cars, they don't have to go to the track on a flatbed, none of that. BRABUS cars are to be driven on the street. So the 992 Turbo S was the perfect base for that project.
My personal favorite out of everything, you know, if you gave me a choice today and say pick a pair of keys, I'm gonna go with the 6x6. Because
No rocket, but 1,000 horsepower? No? Range Rover? No?
Range Rover, I actually FaceTimed my wife with that. She said, are you driving that home? But that,
Yeah.
I got a chance to drive this car, and wow, was I impressed. I got the wow factor, I got the luxury feeling, but yet I also received the engineering aspect of it,
Yeah.
a lot of people need to understand that this isn't just about, as you said earlier, adding a spoiler, making it look pretty. It's not.
People always think that we're starting from the XLP, the 2-axle pickup. We don't. The base of this is a normal, a G63 AMG might not be normal, but the base is still a normal G63 AMG as you know it. We built a completely new frame, and essentially everything you can see under the car that is gray is new. So it's a new frame, it's new axles, it's new differentials, it is a completely new suspension. This thing, compared to the last generation, has 6 wheels with independent suspension.
This is the one car I wanted to finish with. Let's talk about wow factor. You know, this one gave me the wow and the what the F factor, because when I looked at that, I'm like, whoa.
It's a nice one though. We see a couple of them coming through production. This is a super nice configuration. It's the BRABUS crawler, of course.
I mean, this is not a crawler. I think this is the apocalypse machine. This is a tank.
This is our first time that we said we're going to build a pure off-road tool. So we are not going to restrict ourselves. We are going to build something that is purely made for going off-road. Snow, stones, dirt, mud, desert, anywhere you want to take it. This is a 900 horsepower, no windshield, no windows, 650 kilos lighter than your standard G-Class supercar. It's called the BRABUS crawler. It reminds you of a G-Class a bit, but there's actually very, very few things left of the original G-Class. So for one, it has a complete carbon fiber body, Kevlar wheel houses, something that we love to do.
I mean, rocks would destroy this, but it would never destroy
exactly, because it's the underside of things that matters to us most of the time. So we don't want you to have a nice surface on the top, but we also want you to have a nice surface on the bottom, and it needs to work, and this works. And you can buckle in tight with the right seat belts. You've got an intercom as the passenger.
Because you're not going to hear each other.
Exactly.
You're just not going to hear each other.
And you're going to drive this with either helmets on, or we've got goggles that are essentially like ski goggles or snowboard goggles, because you're going to need them.
Yet you built this monster, you built this off-road vehicle, but the first thing that comes to mind outside of that is you didn't sacrifice luxury, because I look at this and I still have a luxury feel. In my world, cars and watches, they go hand in hand, and I know you're also a big watch enthusiast, so I wanted to go look at some of your watches and some of your collection and actually find out. I know what inspires you when it comes to cars. We just found that out. I just want to know what inspires you now too when it comes to watches. So I don't want to say finally, because the highlight of this trip for me was obviously the manufacturer, the cars, seeing everything firsthand, putting a real live image behind the brand, behind the product that you create, and more importantly, behind the man. When I called you up, I said, listen, I don't want the video to be about watches or cars. I want it to be about you, your passions. But
thank you very much.
Lucky for me, one of your passions also happens to be watches in a big way. The first question comes to mind. You chose to go the route of having a very eclectic collection without any direction. Why is that?
It's interesting because I started watch collecting out of, again, how we said everything at BRABUS started with passion. And again, my watch collection is something that started out of passion. My father was really interested in watches. A few of the watches on the table are his, and I still say they're his watches, even though, of course, he's not alive anymore. As a kid, he would always bring watch magazines. He would always bring, mostly on paper back then. He wasn't a high-end watch collector. I don't think he was as interested and as deep into the subject as I am today, but it was the thing that we shared. We were always traveling the world every month of the year. And besides cars, watches was the thing that we both liked to talk about. So when he passed away, I took it with me, and to this day, it's the thing that somehow connects me to him.
What fascinated me about watches in particular was the few things that fascinate me in life in general, and that is mechanics, engineering, but there's also history, right? And as I look around the table, I certainly see a lot of history. I certainly see a lot of innovation. If I had to do a quick comparison, if you want, about talking history, obviously I'm going to go to 𝗴𝗲𝗄𝗃𝗂𝗽, which is my favorite brand, and I see an AP Perpetual, I see an AP Skeleton, I see the automatic, which takes it back to the roots of Gerald Genta.
The original.
You know, the original, right? I actually own a 5402, the very original one from. Yeah, no, you got to come back. You got to come back. You can borrow it. I can send it to you. But yet, at the same token, I look across and I take a look at a resonance, which signifies, you know, independent watchmaking. Signifies something that has never been done in watches before. I see, in my mind, what I feel is one of the easier entry-level independents, like the Moser Vanta Black, which, by the way, my favorite Moser is the Vanta Black Tourbillon Rose Gold. And of course, I also see German roots. I see, let's see if I do this right, Langenzöhne?
Lang und Söhne?
Almost. Every time I talk about Lange, and in America we call it Lange, you know, I always have the one German guy that's going to comment to say, it's Langenzöhne, you pronounce it correctly, right? Any collector's watch dream is to have your name or your company name and your vision on a watch, and that's actually the Panerai that I'm wearing. Obviously you have both versions, which is the blue and the red. And
there's a blue, red, green, and now a titanium carbon mix variant. That's the 4.
When I first received the blue and also the red version of this, you know, I looked at the watch and I said, hey, you know what? I have to be able to look at the watch and say, this watch does say BRABUS to me. And I said that, but I wasn't at 100%. And it wasn't until our visit earlier and I looked at design elements, I looked at the vision of the company, and I looked at the cars, when now I can truly say that you certainly were able to put forth your vision, your company's vision, into the watch. Patek, they call it the king of all watches, right? Patek is king, I should say Rolex is king and Patek is the Rolls Royce of all watches. For our purposes, we're gonna say Patek is the BRABUS of all watches, right? Because of here we are. If you had to pick a Patek, which one is your favorite?
Just to kick it off, the collection you see, I told you how I got into watches, but of course, taking into account what I do on a daily basis, essentially is industrial design. We are an industrial design company that has its own name, if you want to look at what we really create. It is products that involve metal, that involve movements, engines. It is finishing, it is details, it is the inner workings of cars.
Design.
There's a lot of similarities between the world of cars, the world of boats, the world of watches. And so I'm extremely drawn to the mechanics of watches. I'm extremely drawn to learning about the history of each brand, what makes them tick, no pun intended. It's and how what watch stands for which brand, or which one is their core model and why. And that's why you see a lot of different watches from a 5270p, which with the salmon dial and platinum, it's one of my absolute favorite watches because you can go anywhere with it. Nobody recognizes what it is. The people who know, you'll have an interesting conversation with them. To me, I don't just go and buy watches. If I look at a AP Perpetual, I look at the history of that watch. I look at what it means for the brand. And I look at the fact that if the 5270 is quintessential Patek, for me at least, then the Perpetual in the Royal Oak is quintessential 𝗙𝗰𝗄𝗃𝗍𝗍. It's something that is very closely connected to the story in the quartz crises, to how it was actually almost never intended to be, and somebody within the team came up with a complication, then went to the CEO and proposed it, and it ended up being this huge hit for them that nobody really expected. There's something about every single watch that fascinates me, every single watch that we have on the table, every single watch in my collection. There's a story to it, and there's something that deeply fascinates me. I mean, look at the watch that I'm wearing today. It's the Sport Chronograph 1, or FINA, or Porsche Design 1978. This is the first watch that my dad ever bought for himself.
Man.
It's look at the condition it's in. Never polished.
It's actually in great condition.
It's in perfect condition, and I love there's two most important watches in my collection. This and an IWC Portugueser my dad has worn every day. So if you were to ask people what was Bodo Buschmann's watch, IWC Portugueser Automatic is the watch that he would wear every single day at the office. However, if you then, and this is actually a funny story, he took my mom to a holiday in Belgium, And after one day they didn't like it. It was summer, so they turned around, drove all the way to Timmendorfer Strand, which is on the north coast of Germany. And he walked by, at least this is what my mom tells me, he walked by a jeweler, he went to see a jeweler, and he walked by their shop window 5, 6, 7 times, had to go back every day. And he was 18 years old at the time. And after the 5th or 6th time, he finally bought the watch for, I think, what was at the time, 3,000 euro, Deutsche Mark. So a huge amount of money back then. And years later, he makes anniversary watches for the employees at BRABUS. And this is an original BRABUS watch that we used to give people for their 10-year anniversary, for their 15-year, 20-year anniversary. And now, take these two side by side.
I certainly see the similarity.
When you analyze the movement, it's the same movement. When you look at the seconds hand, it's a red seconds hand on a black dial in a round case that's very similar. So through my watch collecting and through looking very closely at the pieces that I have, I could suddenly find out what was going on in my father's head 40 years earlier.
I think it's emotions, right? Because certain things, we'll call them, be it a car or be it a watch. I think you've succeeded when you're able to raise emotion in someone.
You remember how I said earlier that we overthink products, and if we build a car like the Rocket R, there has gone a lot of thinking has gone into this. If it fails because people don't like it, okay, fine. But I think people are never going to say they didn't think about what they were doing, and the same is true for my watch collection. If there's a lot of biographical pieces here. And there's a lot of pieces that I bought because I like the technology or I just appreciate the brand. Let's see, biographical, for example. This is the only 𝗙𝗿𝗏 on the table. It's the only 𝗙𝗿𝗏 I own. And I like the watch. I believe the first watch with a ceramic bracelet at the time. Completely black. 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗏 once said about the design that it's so, somebody, I think, talked to him and said it's so black you can't read the time. He said that's the point. Because it was challenging conventional watch wisdom. And it was simultaneously, it was the watch that my father gifted me when I finished my study, when I finished college. And he said, it's so black you can't read it, and that's typically BRABUS. So again, a lot of somebody's ideas about the watch world converge with what BRABUS meant to my father, actually lead to me still loving the watch and wearing it today.
The flex factor has been a humongous part of the watch industry as of late. I can name half of these pieces as quote unquote the flex pieces. We can talk about the ceramic double balance. We can talk about the skeleton. We can talk about the AP Perpetual, the John Mayer Daytona, or a watch that very rarely anybody could even get their hands on, the Puzzle Day that recently came out, right? There's plenty of flex factor here, but it sounds to me that you collect watches for yourself, not for others to see. And oftentimes people will, when you get a diverse collection such as this, oftentimes people will not reach for a watch that's less flexier, but yet you reach for a watch that has meaning before you will reach for a watch that is indeed a flex factor. I also see, car-related stuff. Okay, I'll ask you first, why did you buy the Historique?
100%. So why did I buy this watch? Vacheron Historique 1921 in white gold. It's one of 2 Vacherons on the table. So first of all, again, this is probably the most complicated watch I inherited from my father. It's a probably early 90s, mid 80s perpetual calendar in the same way, probably with the same movement that also Audemars Piguet used when they developed their perpetual calendar. Secondly, it's Vacheron Constantin. My name is Constantin.
Makes sense.
So for a long time, still today, I question whether I'm named Constantin because my father was a big fan of the watch brand Vacheron, or if he bought this watch because I was named Constantin. I can't ask him today, but
we can only assume.
I know he was a fan of Vacheron for a very, very long time, and I know this watch meant a close connection to me for him. Getting to the American. Of course, there is an unusual. I was intrigued by the shape. I was intrigued by how you have to offset the crown, how you have to position the movement relative to the strap, and of course, there's an alleged car history. I mean, there's several myths, several rumors around the American 1921 that go beyond Art Deco Art Deco styling, and that is number one. The priest who stood in church and preached to his how do you say it, to his constituents. Thank you very much. And needed to read the time. And the other one is that in the 1920s, 1930s, there was big steering wheels.
I go with the second one.
And so if you,
to me, that one is the favorite story.
Exactly. If you were in your car and you wanted to read the time, you could wear it in the driver's position. So as today we would say upside down, and you could read the time optimally. That of course gives it a strong connection to what I again do on a daily basis. And that's why when there's car-related videos, sometimes you'll see me wear this watch.
One of my favorites on this table is the 𝗙𝗲𝗯𝗲 time zone. Watchmaker of 𝗙𝗲𝗲 is far superior to that of Patek Philippe. A company that managed to do something that no other companies ever done. It made brands like Patek Philippe think when they came out with their chronograph. It was around the time where majority of the majors, be it Vacheron, be it Patek, they were outsourcing their movements. When they came out with the datograph and they came out with their in-house chronograph, and a company like Patek turned around and said, whoa, perhaps it's time to start thinking about making our own in-house. And the whole in-house craze started with that. So to me, Lange is extremely important when it comes to that. And I think that their watchmaking is superb to many, many brands out there. In fact, most brands out there. And think of it this way, they're a very lonely company among the Swiss boys.
They make very, very few watches in any given year. To me, we can talk a lot about movements. In the 5270, for example, besides being the first bigger chrono perpetual, this is also the first time Patek went in-house with the perpetual chrono movement. And when we talk about the Lange, I specifically like that this watch is a silver dial platinum watch on a black bracelet. So it's a very subdued design.
We call it a low-key flex.
Low-key flex, if you want to put it that way. If I may say that my problem with Lange is that if you've got one or two of their designs, they're lacking variety a bit. But and I personally
they all seemingly look the same.
I personally think that their bigger models are just too, for my own liking, and I've got a big wrist, they're just too high on the wrist because they're packing a lot of complications inside of them. But this specific piece I like because it's the time zone. I like how they, time zone platinum, I like how they integrated the time zone feature with the buttons to rotate the outer ring showing you the time zone. And again, on a brand level, I like how they happened as a brand pretty quickly.
They came at lightning speed in comparison.
Lange doesn't have the history of Patek. Lange doesn't have the history of Vacheron or some of these other players. And they made their way onto the global stage of watches in 10 years, 5 years. It was basically 2 or 3 exhibitions that really put them on the map. And I appreciate that about them because look at the job that we're doing here. At BRABUS, we're always going to be an independent, if I use a term from the watch world. We don't want to be a big OEM manufacturer. We don't even want to be a Ferrari that makes 13,000, 14,000 cars a year. We make a few hundred cars, very few cars in any given year. And the way Lange appeared just shows me what is possible. It's one of those brands. We can talk about Lange, we can talk about the history of Richard Mille, we can talk about specifically a history I absolutely love is 𝗙𝗵𝗲𝗯. And Lange is one of those brands that just, the dial speaks to me, the technology speaks to me, but also the story and the meaning for the brand speaks to me.
The one standout here, and I was really happy to see the music edition in your collection, and the reason for that is because that's a watch I actually really personally like myself. One of the things that I loved is Audemars Piguet has been famously known for highlighting individuals or perhaps a particular event like the Tour Order Series, right? When I look at this watch, I think back to my heydays when I was a bit younger. I was a rave guy. I used to like going to raves. I used to like going to clubs. I used to like to party. So when I look at it, it reminds me of a rave I may have attended or a specific DJ that I listen to, but it doesn't tie me to one specific individual.
That is if you compare it to, for example, the Travis Scott edition they've just done, I prefer this any day of the week because it's not tied to one specific artist. What does it say about the brand? You've got your main staple, you've got your main thing, which for them is the Royal Oak, square and center, which for us, of course, still is our Mercedes-Benz portfolio cars like the G900, GV12, 6x6. You've got every brand's got this thing. That's their main product. And then you need to do something different. And when this comes out, There's a lot of people, or this comes out, or when we build a car based on a Porsche, or when we design a boat, or any brand does something out of the ordinary, people will come out and say, you know, this is stupid. Why are they doing this? It doesn't look like anything. Are they running out of ideas? Are they not selling the normal Royal Oaks anymore? They need to do limited editions. And I see it in a completely different way. I believe Audemars is always going to sell you
this is their G-Class.
100%. So they're always going to have their jumbo, and rightfully so. They're always going to have the 41, always going to have 39, they're always going to have the standard offshores. But then they need to do something that connects them to new target groups. They need to do something, in this case musicians, artists, younger people. They need to do something that is different, and they need to develop as a brand. I see all of that when I look at the music edition, and that's why I think it's a fascinating watch.
Let's take the music edition, but then also let's take this Breguet. This is from the Classique collection, so it's about as classy that it's going to get. How does that end up in your collection alongside with Presidentials and Royal Oaks?
Personally, Breguet is the #1 undermanaged brand in the market.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Breguet should be, in my own opinion, Breguet should be up there with Patek as one of the most desirable watch brands in the world. With everything he did, with the patents that they had,
he's the godfather of all watchmaking. I've always referred to him as that.
They should be up there, and they should be one of the best brands, but they're not. Somehow the story is not being told of what Breguet really is, and they don't connect to customers in a way that Audemars Piguet has been doing, especially under François Ben-Ami's the last 10, 12 years. Were of course extraordinary, but also a brand like Hublot has, whether you like them or not, has been able, even though they're with LVMH, or that Patek has been able to do. Lange, or that Moser, Moser we're probably going to talk about later, also interesting story. But Breguet hasn't been able to connect to the watch collector, to the base of watch collectors in the same way, and I think it's mostly storytelling.
I'll sum it up for you. I was at Watch Time in New York, and the Swatch brands were there, and obviously including Breguet. I said 3 words. What a shame. You started the conversation properly, mismanaged, right? So here you are, you're part of a big group, and I understand. Big corporation, it's a numbers game, it's about profits, it's about numbers, but somewhere along the way, if you lose passion, especially for a brand that, like I call it, the godfather of all watchmaking, you have to redirect sometimes. You have to do some bigger changes. You have to cut down on things in order to make them better in the future. You know, in order to scale, sometimes you have to scale down in order to scale up. And I think the Swatch Group is losing sight of that. They're coasting. There's an old saying, a business that isn't growing is a business that's dying.
It looks like a lot of the watch brands that are successful today looked 20 years ago.
Exactly.
And they haven't adapted to the time today.
Exactly.
Still, talking about the watch itself, it's a beautiful and completely quirky dial. That's what appeals to me. It's got the moon phase at 12 o'clock and not 6 o'clock. It's got the reserve indicator below that in a way that I don't see in any other watch. I like the blue hands, I like the enamel dial. Also, I very much love the simpler version that just has the enamel dial with the kind of imprinted. I oftentimes look at an outfit that I'm going to wear on any given day, and I like to combine opposites, things that nobody would expect. So let's say we meet in a fancy restaurant in Cologne or in Miami or anywhere, and I come in, you know who I am, you know what I do, what do you expect me to wear? You expect me to wear this, you know, or you expect me to wear the Perpetual, or you expect me to wear a Daytona. And there is John Mayer Daytona kind of days. By the way, this is the only Daytona I own, because
pick the good one.
You won't see a lot of repetition in my collection. There's people that want to have 50 Daytonas, I'm just not one of them. Yes, there is John Mayer Daytona kind of days, but it's so much more fun when we meet, and let's say I'm wearing a streetwear outfit, and then you look at what watch I'm wearing, and I'm wearing this. Because nowadays, a lot of people know that I collect watches, a lot of people, you know, talk to me about watches, so I feel like I don't have to, and I don't want to walk into a restaurant when I meet you and wear a flex watch. Doesn't mean that I don't like them. It doesn't mean that I can't appreciate, you know, a beautiful, sadly yellow gold, which scratches very, very fast, open work dial on an Audemars Piguet. I can 100% appreciate it. They are fantastic watches. But when I walk into a restaurant, we sit down and I wear a George Bamford Snoopy watch. That's going to be a different conversation. To me, watch collecting is all about that. It's about conversations I'm having with people that I would otherwise not have conversations with. It's about sharing. So you see somebody's eyes light up and say, oh my God, you're wearing this. I've got the same version in a different color, or I have this, how does it compare? Why did you choose this model? And then you just end up having a fun conversation. And oftentimes, I've often met people this way, and they become friends, or we chat about
the amount of new friends I've made, it's a little easy if I'm in this industry. Almost every client becomes a friend because it's such a personalized business. I feel it's the same with you and your company as well. And the amount of friendships, business opportunities, or just interesting conversations that stem from these tiny little marvels we like to call watches, it's immense, it's almost unlimited. I love what you said earlier, and I wish Adrian was here from my company, because Adrian has always been the guy that, we are in a new world today. We are in a world where somebody will wear a sweatsuit with a 5270 Patek perpetual calendar chronograph. We are in a world that somebody can put on a big Panerai wearing a 3-piece suit. And so the line between dress watch and sports watch, or a watch only goes with certain situation and outfit, that line has almost disappeared at this point. It seems like you're a perfect example of that.
There's certain situations for certain watches. For example, I go to meet engineers and tech people. Whether we just had another board meeting at KTM in Austria, which we manufacture the motorbikes with, or I go to Helsinki, where we design our boats, and I have a meeting with an engineer team. High likelihood, I'm gonna wear the Resins, because it's just a techie watch and it fits.
It's going to strike up a conversation in the right crowd.
Or let's put it the other way around. Let's say I give a speech in front of college students, or I go to a conference. A lot of times you'll find me not wearing a Patek, or not wearing like an Audemars, but something like 𝗙𝗰𝗲𝗯𝗍𝗄 Alain Silberstein collab, or something
I love Silverstein. I have his clocks in my house.
Another watch, because let's say I'm giving a talk in front of college students. Why am I wearing a yellow gold Audemars Piguet? Who do I want to,
Who are you trying to impress?
Do I really need to impress? Do I really need to show off in front of that crowd? Or can I not just have something on that sparks a fun conversation? Or that just that helps you to make fun of yourself. Watch collecting in the end is a hobby. Everything that we build as a company is something nobody needs. It's luxury products. It's something you buy when you mostly look at it in your what I call emotional free time on a Saturday on the couch. You look at it, oh my God, I might gift myself a new sports car. I might gift myself a new boat. It doesn't change the world. It's nice design. So I'm a big believer in not really. I do everything. We are professional, but I don't take us and myself too seriously.
I love that.
So coming back to the college student example, who am I trying to impress? Why not wear the Snoopy watch and just have a fun conversation? Why not bring the Resins, or a vintage watch, and talk about brands?
I meet people from all walks of life, and I meet a ton of watch collectors, from guys that where an average price point of a watch may be around $1,000, even $500, to guys where an average price point can be $100,000. One of the things I've found to be true often is when I do sit down and I do meet with people, they tend to put on their most impressive watch, because this is Roman from Luxury Bazaar. He's a big watch guy. I'm going to put on my most impressive watch. What impressed me the most is the watch that you put on when you met me. One is actually priceless. If anybody looked at that watch as a watch, they'd be like, oh, it's not really a big deal watch. But yet, that was most impressive to me, is that you chose to put that watch on versus plenty of impressive watches. And the question that I had for you was...
It is my most precious watch, by the way.
Exactly. And the question I have for you is, how much inspiration are you able to draw from the world of watches that actually will then translate into the cars that you manufacture?
A lot. Again, coming back to my father, he's one of the most important sentences that he's ever said to me, and it sticks in my mind every day. And my team hears me right now. None of them is in the room, otherwise I would have asked. One of the sentences that you'll hear me say almost on a daily basis in our business is that my father said, you have to be customer number one. So my role in this business is to be customer number one. By that he didn't mean I have to buy, every car on the market, or I have to show off the most, or anything like that. What he meant is, you have to live in the world that your customers live in. You have to be passionate about the things that you're producing. You have to wear watches. You have to drive the cars. You have to immerse yourself in that world, to really understand where our customers are coming from. I'm intensely passionate about cars and watches. How many times do you come to a company and then you meet, it's pretty sad actually, and then you meet the CEO, the owner, somebody, and it's the 71st generation in the business, and then you talk to them about whatever it is, solar panels, heating systems, cars, it might be whichever product you choose. And then after 2 minutes, you notice they're not really into their product. They don't know about their solar panels. They don't know about their cars. They don't know, they're so far removed from the actual product that it's somehow inspirationless to talk to them. Without our customers, all of the buildings that you saw today, all of our company are just empty buildings. No euro is flowing in, not a single wage is being paid. Without the customer that puts, G900, 600,000 euros, that is real money. That is real money. For somebody to put that down, that means something. And when I collect things myself and I buy a 5270 and I put the money down, I know what it feels like. It's not something I'm removed from. When I look at how we build manufacturing, it is deeply inspired by watch workshops. I visited so many watch manufacturers and I look at how their manufacturing is spotless for a reason, because they build very tiny products. If something falls down on the ground, you'll never find it again if it's dirty. If your workshop's dusty, you'll have it in the product. It's going to ruin the movement. So when I saw that, I was so impressed. I said, I want to build a car workshop that is as clean as the cleanest watch workshop.
I think I can sum it up with one word, and that word is going to be vision. And based on the visit that I had here, I can see the great vision that you have, and I think that I can make a direct comparison about BRABUS versus what I always say about watches. To me, it's history, it's innovation, it's legacy, and last but not least, it's the passion. And for that, I'm extremely grateful that I made the trip across the pond and I got to see the best of both worlds, both the side of you when it comes to your business, your cars, and your passions, and of course this other little passion that I actually enjoy most, which is watches. I wanted to thank you so much for, first of all, opening your doors to your factory, to every single facility. I think I've got a tour to a point that I don't know how much more I could ask of. This was absolutely an amazing experience, and of course, giving us a sneak peek at your watch collection. After all, my channel is about watches, and being able to sit down so intimately and so up close and personal with the watches and see where some of your passions are, derived from. I'm happy to hear that some of those passions are derived from watches that in turn translate into your cars. But it's been a wonderful experience. I thank you once again. I appreciate the time we spent, and hopefully I'll see you in October for the runway show.
Let me say before you guys turn off, let me say one thing. All of which we talked about was actually also what attracted me to your videos and why I've been following both Gray Market as a show, but even more the videos that you put out where you tell and where you show you and explain your watches and show your expertise of watches. To me, you're not an influencer. You're the owner of a company sharing expertise of what you make a living with every day. That is why I watch your content, the content that your team creates. If to me personally, it is one of the best. It is one of the best channels on the internet to learn about watches, to know about watches, to get inside that hobby and that game, and understand the market. And so please keep up doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
I'd love to visit you one day at your base, and then let's see what else we can do.
I can't promise you a tour that's going to take that long. Our space is a bit smaller, but then our products are also a bit smaller. But thank you so much again, Constantin. A big thank you to Constantin and the entire team at BRABUS that welcomed us with open arms and showed us the inner workings of that company in its entirety. Thank you, Constantin, for sharing your watch collection with us as well. I don't know about you guys. I hope you got the same feeling, but I certainly had a wonderful experience, and we tried our best to put that forth on video for you to try to experience the same thing that we did. With that said, we put a lot of effort into this stuff, and this took quite a lot of time and traveling around the globe. So I really hope you enjoyed it enough to hit the like button, share this with your friend, and become a subscriber if you do not subscribe to our channel. We'll see you on the next one.